Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of like clinical precision.
Right, yeah.
Think about the engineering behind an X-ray machine. You break your arm, the machine takes a picture, and it shows that jagged white line on the
It's
screen.
very binary.
Exactly. The doctor points at it and says, there's the fracture. It's clean. It is an objective truth about what is happening inside your body at that exact moment.
Because the machine captures a physical reality without any ambiguity, right? I mean, it's either broken or it's not broken.
Right. But then, and this is where we're going today, you step into the modern digital landscape, and suddenly that pristine X-ray machine is completely shattered.
Oh, completely.
We operate under this bizarre assumption that we know exactly what our digital tools are looking at and exactly what they see. If you want to know everything about a person today, the common wisdom is that you just look at their phone, right?
Yeah, that's the ultimate tracking device.
Right.
Or so we think.
Exactly. We assume the phone is the modern X-ray of our lives. But I want to welcome everyone to today's deep dive, because our mission today is to explore the reality of modern vehicle data privacy. And it is deeply unsettling.
It really is. The phone has been, the villain in the privacy narrative for over a decade now. It sits in your hand, it lights up, it buzzes, it constantly demands your attention.
Yeah, we're hyper aware of it.
Exactly. People turn off location services, they deny app permissions, they put tape over their laptop cameras. We treat the phone like a spy in our pocket because it's interactive and it's obvious.
Right, but the reality we are diving into today completely flips that assumption on its head. The most sophisticated, intimate surveillance device that most people own does not fit in their pocket.
No, it certainly doesn't.
It doesn't have a screen you constantly tap. It weighs 2 tons, and it is sitting out in your driveway right now.
And just to set the tone for everyone listening, this isn't some sci-fi conspiracy theory.
No, definitely not.
We are looking at factual, current business models. We're looking at legally binding privacy policies, the exact language automakers use today.
Yeah, we are unpacking source material heavily featuring data from a massive 2023 Mozilla Vehicle Privacy Review, alongside a pivotal 2016 McKinsey report on data monetization.
And when you look at those two things together, a very clear, very unsettling picture emerges. The car is no longer just a mechanical machine.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why car data is so valuable, we first have to understand the fundamental difference between what a smartphone captures and what a vehicle captures.
Right. And on the surface, they seem to be tracking the same basic metric, which is location.
Yeah. I mean, if you have your phone in your pocket while you drive, it knows you traveled from your house to the grocery store.
But to frame the difference, think of a smartphone as giving you the dots on a map. It logs a coordinate at 9:00 a.m. and another coordinate at 9:05 a.m.
Yeah.
It basically just tells the system that you moved. But the car connects those dots with a high-definition, multi-sensory behavioral video of exactly what happened in between.
So a phone knows you went to the doctor's office, but the car knows how you drove there.
Exactly. It captures the physical act of driving,
Yeah.
and the sheer volume of metrics being pulled is wild.
We're not just talking about the odometer here, right?
But no. The sensors in a modern vehicle are measuring your steering angle. They're tracking the exact pressure you apply to the brake pedal, your acceleration curves.
Wait, they track the specific pressure on the pedal?
Oh, yeah. Millimeters of travel.
Ah.
Plus, they track whether or not your seatbelt is engaged and at what tension, the weight on the seats, the tire pressure.
That's incredibly granular.
It goes all the way up to in-cabin microphones processing your voice commands and even the ambient noise of the cabin.
So it's basically a rolling sensor suite.
Exactly. The typical new car has dozens of internal computers and millions of lines of code dedicated to monitoring its own physical state and the physical state of the driver. It's measuring inputs thousands of times per second.
Which really requires a massive shift in how we think about privacy. Because, we are culturally conditioned to think of privacy as, where am I?
Right, location tracking.
Yeah, we worry about location tracking. We don't think about privacy in terms of how hard did I step on a pedal. But there is a concept from the data world that completely changes this. The week versus month phenomenon.
Yes, this is where the power of telemetry data really compounds into something deeply intrusive.
Walk us through that. How does the time frame change the data?
Well, the compounding factor is the key to understanding why vehicle data is so lucrative. If a system analyzes just 1 week of vehicle data, it essentially just sees those dots on the map, a snapshot of locations.
Like Tuesday, I went to the grocery store. Thursday, I went to the office. But I mean, my phone already does that. It sends me that creepy little summary at the end of the week telling me how much time I spent at commercial locations versus my home.
Right, and that is a basic spatial profile.
Hmm.
But when you expand that data pool to one full month, it stops being about location and starts being about routines, human habits.
Okay, so it sees the repetition.
Over a month, the algorithm isn't just seeing individual trips, it's mapping your entire life structure. It sees your fixed work schedule, it sees your late night stops,
Wow.
it logs your weekly church attendance, it spots regular medical visits, school drop-off patterns, and even starts to map out relationship patterns based on where the vehicle is parked overnight on weekends versus weekdays.
Okay, but I have to push back on this a little bit, though. Let's look at this purely mechanically.
Sure.
At the end of the day, driving is just a utility. It's getting from point A to point B. Even if I drive somewhere every Tuesday, a car is just a machine recording speed and steering angle.
You're wondering how they get a profile out of that.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time buying the leap from the steering wheel moved 12 degrees to the car knows my emotional profile. How does a cold machine interpret human emotion?
By analyzing the deviations in your established physical patterns. Driving is an incredibly revealing human activity precisely because it requires physical action in response to mental states.
Okay.
Think about the different ways you drive. You physically maneuver the vehicle differently when you are exhausted compared to when you are fully alert.
I mean, I guess that's true.
You hit the pedals differently when you are angry, grieving, distracted, sick, or celebrating.
Okay, let's take a really specific example. What happens if I'm driving home and a deer runs out into the road?
Okay.
I slam on the brakes. My steering wheel jerks. A machine looking at that single event sees aggressive, erratic driving. It might assume I'm stressed or reckless, when in reality, I'm just a defensive driver avoiding an accident.
Right.
Doesn't that one random event completely corrupt the emotional profile?
That is exactly why the week versus month compounding factor is so vital to these algorithms. Data scientists call it data smoothing, or filtering for statistical noise.
Filtering for noise?
Yeah. A single hard brake on a Tuesday is an anomaly. The system flags it, but it doesn't redefine your profile based on one swerve. The algorithm is looking for established, recurring patterns over time.
So it's looking for a rhythm, not a solo.
A rhythm, yes. Let's look at how the data smooths out your deer scenario and replaces it with a behavioral insight.
Okay.
If the system logs one hard brake, you avoided an obstacle. But if the system logs a consistent month-over-month pattern where your acceleration becomes highly aggressive and your braking becomes incredibly abrupt, specifically in the 3 days leading up to the end of the month.
Wait, so it maps the brake pedal movement against a calendar?
Yes. It overlays your physical telemetry with temporal data. A pattern of aggressive driving leading up to the first of the month paints a very clear, statistically significant picture of financial stress.
Oh, wow. Because rent is due.
Exactly. You're driving differently because your rent is due. Alternatively, if the data shows erratic steering corrections and fluctuating speeds during late-night trips, it paints a picture of chronic fatigue or potential substance-related risk behavior.
That is wild.
You aren't typing, "I am stressed about money" into a search engine, you're just driving home from work. But your physical movements betray your psychological state.
The car essentially acts as a private confessional booth. It sees the unvarnished physical manifestation of your internal life, the version of you that never shows up on your curated social media profiles.
That's a great way to put it.
And the sheer mechanics of how this data leaves the car is fascinating, because a modern vehicle is not just a localized sensor, it is a rolling network.
The term rolling network perfectly captures the architecture, because historically, car data stayed in the car.
Right, like if your check engine light came on.
Yeah, a mechanic had to physically plug a diagnostic tool into the port under the steering wheel to pull the code. The data was physically trapped in the machine.
But that is completely gone now. The architecture has changed entirely.
The modern car utilizes what is called a telematics control unit, or TCU. This is essentially a built-in cellular modem.
Okay.
It connects the vehicle's internal network of sensors directly to the cloud. So that steering angle data, that seat weight data, that hard braking pattern, it doesn't wait for a mechanic.
It just beams it out.
Continuously, over 4G and 5G networks, directly to the manufacturer's servers.
It's a constant silent upload happening while you just sit at a red light. And it doesn't stop there. The car is also pulling data from the websites you visit to manage your vehicle account.
Yeah, the companion apps.
Right. And it's pulling diagnostic dumps over the dealership's Wi-Fi network the second you pull into the service bay for an oil change. And then there's the biggest Trojan horse of all.
Connected phones.
Yes.
The connected phone is the ultimate doorway for this network. The moment you plug your smartphone into the dashboard via USB cable or connected via Bluetooth to use a navigation app or play music, you are bridging the gap.
You're syncing everything.
You are merging the car's telemetry data with the phone's massive reservoir of personal data. The car suddenly has access to your contacts, your message metadata, your media preferences, and your calendar.
You essentially take the spy in your pocket and plug it directly into the 2-ton surveillance network.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When researchers at Mozilla analyzed all of this data being hoovered up, they looked at the actual privacy policies of the major car brands. What they found is the kind of thing that makes you want to go buy a bicycle.
It's shocking.
84% of the car brands reviewed explicitly state they can share your personal data.
Over 8 in 10 brands. That represents an overwhelming majority of the consumer market. It is almost impossible to buy a modern car that does not have that clause baked into the fine print.
And it escalates from there. 76% of them explicitly say they can sell your personal data.
Sell it to third parties.
Yep. And 56% say they can share your information with government or law enforcement upon request.
The operative phrase in that finding is upon request.
Right, I want to highlight that. This isn't a situation where the police show up with a signed warrant from a judge.
No.
This does not require a subpoena. It doesn't require a formal court order. More than half of these global automotive brands are willing to hand over a high-definition, behavioral, location-based video of your life simply because an agency asks them for it.
Which fundamentally alters the psychological contract you make when you purchase a vehicle.
Yeah.
You bought a car to get to work, to transport your family, to have mobility and independence.
About transportation.
Exactly. You did not realize you were entering into a continuous, active data brokering relationship where your movements are an open book to third parties and state agencies.
I think most people listening to this would feel their stomach drop a little, knowing their steering wheel is essentially administering a covert psychological evaluation based on their braking habits.
Oh, absolutely.
But the actual privacy policies go into territory that sounds completely unhinged. The boundaries extend far beyond anything resembling driving or mobility.
The legal documents governing this rolling network are meticulously crafted. They're designed to cast the widest possible net over your human identity,
Yeah.
legally securing the right to gather information that has absolutely nothing to do with internal combustion or electric motors.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate for a second, because we have to be fair to the engineering reality.
Sure.
There are categories of data that a car must collect to function in the modern world. The vehicle identification number, the VIN. Location data for the GPS to actually route you. Diagnostic codes so the anti-lock brakes work, and the manufacturer knows if an airbag module is defective.
Right. A dealership needs service records to honor a warranty. The manufacturer needs telematics to push over-the-air software updates that fix security vulnerabilities.
Yeah, the basic mechanical necessity of data collection is not the issue here. The machine needs data to be a machine.
But the Mozilla review uncovered a detail that is genuinely shocking. 6 car companies explicitly state in their privacy policies that they could collect genetic information or genetic characteristics.
Genetic information. Written into the legally binding privacy policy of a passenger vehicle.
It's hard to believe.
And we are not talking about some obscure experimental hypercar startup in Silicon Valley. The broader public summary names massive household global brands. BMW, Ford, Toyota, Tesla, Kia, Subaru.
Yeah, those are the exact examples given of brands whose policies create avenues for the collection of deeply, intimately personal categories.
It's terrifying.
The policies include provisions for categories like sexual activity, immigration status, race, facial expressions, weight, health information.
Okay, wait. Stop right there. When I first read that in the source text, my immediate reaction was complete disbelief. How is a Honda Civic or a Ford F-150 collecting my genetic characteristics?
Sounds like science fiction.
Right. I'm sitting in the driver's seat. Is there a hidden needle in the steering wheel taking a DNA swab? Is the seat analyzing my sweat glands? The physical reality of the car does not match the legal language. How does a car track my immigration status?
What's fascinating here is that the disconnect between the physical car and the legal language is solved by understanding one critical 2-word phrase used relentlessly in these documents.
And what's that?
may collect.
May collect. That sounds incredibly passive.
It sounds passive, but it is a legal superpower. When a privacy policy states that a company may collect genetic information, it does not mean they have a lab built into the dashboard analyzing your saliva.
Okay, good.
It means the company is constructing a legal pipeline. They are preemptively reserving the right to collect, purchase, or infer that category of data under certain conditions, now or at any point in the future.
So they're building an empty highway and making sure they own all the toll booths, just in case they ever figure out how to put cars on it.
Exactly. They are future-proofing their surveillance architecture. It leaves legal room for future interior cameras that analyze facial expressions for fatigue.
Which some cars already have.
Yes. It leaves room for third-party app integrations, where a fitness tracker app connects to the dashboard, and suddenly the car's ecosystem has your heart rate and weight.
Oh, man.
It leaves room for the manufacturer to purchase massive data sets from external data brokers and merge that purchase data with your car's VIN profile.
Let me try an analogy here to see if I'm grasping the scale of this.
Go for it.
Imagine you are renting a new apartment. You read through the lease, and buried on page 40 is a clause that says, the landlord may store their own personal furniture in your living room.
Okay.
Now you sign the lease, you get the keys, you walk in, and the living room is empty. There is no furniture. The landlord isn't actively storing a couch next to your television.
Right.
But they wrote the lease in such a way that if they ever want to, or if they ever require a couch they don't have room for, they have the absolute legal right to unlock your door, walk in, and dump it in your space.
That's spot on.
The clause exists purely to protect the landlord's future options. It offers zero benefit to the tenant.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. The may collect language is the landlord's key. And in the context of vehicle data, that furniture is sensitive information pulled from entirely external sources.
So it's not just the car generating it.
No, the policy isn't just governing the metal box with wheels, it is governing an entire data ecosystem. The question isn't, how does the steering wheel sequence my DNA? The actual question is, how broad is this company's data pipeline and what outside sources are legally permitted to feed into it?
Because the car company isn't operating in a vacuum. They can pull data from the finance application you filled out at the dealership. They can pull from marketing partners.
Exactly.
Once that may collect language is signed, it covers the entire sprawling network. And honestly, genetic data is a uniquely terrifying category.
It really is.
If a car tracks my preferred seat temperature, that's just about me. But genetic data points to family history. It points to inherited traits and predispositions to diseases.
Right, it's not isolated.
No. It implicates my siblings, my children, my parents' relatives who may have never even sat in the vehicle, let alone agreed to a privacy policy.
Which brings us to the most frustrating defense used by the automotive industry. The illusion of consent.
Ah, yes.
Whenever these companies are challenged on the breadth of their data collection, the default corporate response is always, the customer consented, they agreed to the terms of service.
Let's dissect what that consent actually looks like in the real world. The Mozilla researchers, and these are highly trained professional privacy experts who analyze data policies for a living, they spent over 600 hours reviewing the vehicle privacy practices of these brands.
600 hours.
600 hours of professional labor just to decode what was actually happening. That's like 15 weeks of a full-time job.
Just reading the fine print.
Yeah.
If it takes a team of dedicated experts 600 hours to untangle the maze of affiliates, vendor agreements, and third-party data sharing clauses, what conceivable chance does an average consumer have of giving informed consent?
Absolutely zero chance. Put yourself in the shoes of a normal person listening to this. You are sitting at a dealership on a Saturday afternoon.
You're exhausted.
Right. You have just spent 4 grueling hours test driving, negotiating the price, arguing over the trade-in value, and figuring out the loan interest rate. You are psychologically drained.
Completely.
The finance manager pushes a tablet across the desk and says, okay, we are almost done. Just sign here to activate your remote start and the built-in navigation. You click accept. You want to go home.
You just want the keys.
Exactly. You do not have the time, the legal background, or the cognitive bandwidth to realize you just opted into an ecosystem that allows a multinational corporation to collect inferences about your sexual activity and share them with the police upon request.
Consent in this environment is a weaponized formality. It is a maze designed to overwhelm you.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
The policy is written like a dense fog, deploying incredibly broad categories hidden behind the soft, non-threatening word may. The driver becomes a fully integrated product in a data supply chain before they even understand the nature of the transaction.
And once that sensitive data enters their ecosystem, closing the door is nearly impossible. You can't just unsign the document without losing the core functionality of the car you just bought.
You'd lose your navigation, your emergency services, sometimes even the ability to start the car remotely.
So the question that naturally arises is, why? Why would major car companies risk the massive PR nightmare of claiming the right to your genetic information?
It seems counterintuitive.
It does. Why go to the trouble of hoarding your late-night braking habits? What is the incentive?
Well, the incentive is the same force that drives every major shift in modern technology. It is a staggering amount of money.
So we have established what they are collecting, from steering angles to health inferences. We have established how they legally shield themselves with the may collect fog and the exhaustion of dealership consent. Now we have to follow the money.
Right, to see exactly why this surveillance ecosystem was built in the first place.
And to understand the why, we have to look at the financial projections that reshaped the industry. Specifically, a landmark 2016 report from McKinsey.
Yes, that report is central to this.
The number they projected is difficult to wrap your head around. The McKinsey report projected that the global revenue pool from car data monetization could reach $750 billion by the year 2030.
$750 billion.
Wow.
And we need to isolate exactly what that number represents.
Right.
It is not the revenue from selling the physical cars.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the profit margins on a new transmission, or the cost of recalling defective airbags, or the financing interest on auto loans.
It is pure data monetization. It is revenue generated entirely from the invisible exhaust of human behavior.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it represents a fundamental seismic shift in the underlying business model of the automotive industry.
How so?
Think about the historical economics of a car. A car was the ultimate depreciating asset. The old joke is the car loses 20% of its value the second its tires roll off the dealership lot.
Yeah, my dad used to say that all the time.
Right. The manufacturer made their profit on that initial transaction and perhaps some residual income on replacement parts and authorized service over the next decade. But that model is dead.
The machine used to lose value. Now the machine continuously produces value after the sale.
Every single time you turn the ignition, the vehicle becomes a generator. Every trip creates a unique data set.
Like printing money.
Basically, every data point feeds into an algorithm, and every algorithm supports a new product, a predictive service, a targeted advertisement, or a risk assessment model. The vehicle has been transformed from a mode of transportation into a highly efficient harvester of behavioral intelligence.
But $750 billion doesn't just materialize out of thin air. Someone has to be writing the checks. Who are the buyers in this massive new data supply chain?
The ecosystem has an incredibly diverse group of buyers, all hungry for different slices of your profile. First, and perhaps most aggressively, you have the insurance companies.
Okay, the insurance companies.
Yes, they are buying the raw driving behavior data.
The speed, the mileage, the time of day, and those heartbreaking events we talked about earlier.
Exactly. They feed that telemetry into usage-based insurance models. They use it to adjust your premiums dynamically and assign you a driver risk score.
Let's expand on that insurance angle, because this is where the algorithmic noise we discussed earlier becomes financially punitive.
Very much so.
Let's go back to my deer scenario. I swerve to avoid a deer late at night. The algorithm, looking at a limited data set or failing to account for the context of a rural road, flags that as erratic, aggressive driving.
Right. The machine strips the context.
Exactly. The insurance company buys that data point. Suddenly, my premium goes up by $50 a month. I am being financially penalized for being a safe, attentive driver purely because a machine stripped the context away from my physical movement.
And you have no recourse.
None. I can't call the insurance agent and explain the deer because the agent just sees a risk score generated by a black box.
That is the exact danger of automated behavioral scoring. You are judged by a machine's interpretation of your movements, and insurance is just the first buyer. Next, you have advertisers and marketing firms.
What are they buying?
They are buying the location and lifestyle data. A vehicle that knows exactly where you shop, what restaurants you frequent, where your gym is, and where you sleep is an absolute goldmine. It is a moving, high-fidelity consumer profile.
So if I stop at a fast food drive-thru twice a week, the car knows.
Yep.
If I visit a specialized medical clinic, the car knows. Advertisers can use that to target me on my phone, completing the loop.
Exactly. And then you have the repair and service networks. They buy the diagnostic data.
See, from a mechanical standpoint, This seems helpful. The car knows if a water pump is starting to fail.
It is helpful for maintenance, yes, but the financial angle is about front-running. The repair networks buy this data so they can market a repair to you before you even realize the car is sick. They control the service timeline.
Wow. Okay, who else?
Then there are the finance companies and lenders. This might be the most dystopian buyer on the list.
Really? How so?
They use the behavioral data to evaluate loan risk and payment stress. If your driving patterns indicate you are suddenly working a night shift or you are making frequent stops at payday loan locations, the lender can flag you as a default risk.
You've got to be kidding me.
No, it's true. They can even use the car's location data to facilitate a faster, cheaper repossession if you miss a payment.
That is incredibly invasive.
And data brokers are heavily involved as well, buying raw data from automakers, packaging it with your credit history and online search habits, and reselling it as a comprehensive dossier.
It's a feeding frenzy.
It is. Cities and municipalities buy aggregated mobility data for urban planning. The automakers themselves use it to build incredibly granular profiles to sell you subscription services.
Oh, like charging you a monthly fee to unlock the heated seats that are already physically installed in your car?
Exactly that.
It all coalesces into an incredible summary of modern existence. A trip to work is no longer just a commute, it is traffic intelligence sold to a municipality.
Right.
A hard brake is no longer a physical reaction, it is actuarial data sold to an insurance firm. A check engine code is no longer a warning, it is targeted service marketing. A stop at the grocery store is consumer profiling. And a late-night drive to clear your head is behavioral patterning.
Every physical movement you make in that vehicle is converted into a commodity and traded on an invisible market.
So what does this all mean? This entire structure leads to a concept that I think we can call the triple pay paradox. When you lay it all out, the economics of car ownership are completely backward for the consumer. You are paying for the privilege of being surveilled.
Break down the layers of that paradox for us because it perfectly illustrates the loss of consumer leverage.
Okay, layer one. You pay first to acquire the machine. You take out a 5-year loan. You hand over $30, $40, maybe $50,000 for the physical steel, glass, and lithium. You buy the asset.
Right, the initial cost.
Layer two. You pay continuously to operate the machine. You buy the fuel or the electricity. You pay for the mandated insurance. You pay for the maintenance. And increasingly, as you just said, you pay for software subscriptions just to use the features inside the car you already bought.
So you fund the physical existence and operation of the sensor network.
Yeah.
And then comes the hidden third layer.
Exactly. Layer three. You pay with your loss of privacy. You generate the incredibly valuable raw material, the data, simply by living your daily life.
Just by existing.
You drive to the doctor, you drop your kids at school, you navigate your commute, you do all the work of living. And then companies you have never heard of, operating in a secondary data market, earn billions of dollars in revenue from the behavioral exhaust you generated.
The person sitting inside the cabin becomes the asset that keeps producing the yield. The car is the factory, the data is the product, and you are the free labor.
That is a bleak summary.
But we should be clear, the ultimate takeaway from analyzing these systems is not that data collection is inherently universally evil.
Right. We have to acknowledge the nuance here. No one is arguing that automatic crash response systems are bad.
No, of course not.
No one is saying that stolen vehicle tracking or advanced driver assistance systems that prevent collisions are negative developments. Data can be incredibly useful, and it saves lives.
But the core issue at the heart of the Mozilla review and the McKinsey projections is a total lack of control. It is entirely an issue of power and autonomy.
Who holds the keys?
Yes, who decides exactly what is collected? Who decides what gets sold and to whom? Who gets the right to opt out of the behavioral tracking without losing the basic necessary functions of the vehicle they paid for? Who is actively auditing this massive opaque system to ensure it isn't being abused?
And perhaps the most terrifying question: who is left exposed when this massive reservoir of deeply personal data inevitably leaks?
Because it will.
History tells us without fail that any database that exists will eventually be breached.
Always. There is no such thing as a perfectly secure system. A data broker will leave a cloud server unsecured, or a hacker will breach an automaker's infrastructure.
It's just a matter of time.
That is the real consequence of the $750 billion data economy. The money comes from converting your driving into data, and the buyer is anyone who can turn that data into power, prediction, profit, or control. And the one paying the highest price, mostly quietly and unknowingly, is the driver who just wanted to get to work.
It is a profound, almost silent shift in how we exist in the physical world. We've gone on quite a journey today exploring this landscape.
We really have.
We started by looking at how cars have evolved from purely mechanical tools into highly sensitive rolling networks, capable of capturing a high-definition behavioral and emotional map of our lives over weeks and months.
And we dissected the foggy catch-all legal language, that incredibly powerful may-collect phrase, that allows automakers to build preemptive pipelines for sensitive data, including genetic characteristics.
Yeah, and we traced how the exhaustion of the dealership consent process enables this entirely.
And finally, we connected that vast surveillance architecture to the massive financial incentive driving it, a projected $750 billion global ecosystem where the physical movement, the stress, and the habits of the driver are the ultimate commodities.
It is a lot to process, and it challenges a lot of the assumptions we have about our private spaces. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on everything we've discussed about control and the longevity of this data.
This is something I think about a lot. Consider the lifespan of the information versus the lifespan of the machine. The data your car generated today will, in all likelihood, outlive the vehicle itself.
That's a creepy thought.
Think about the physical life cycle of a car. After 10 or 15 years, it gets old. The transmission slips, the engine block cracks, it gets sent to a junkyard. The steel is crushed, melted down, and recycled. The physical machine ceases to exist in the world.
Right.
But the behavioral profile of how you drove it, the records of where you went when you were stressed, the inferences made about your health, your finances, your relationships, that data does not get crushed, doesn't rust.
It just sits there.
It might sit in a data broker server in perpetuity, duplicated, cross-referenced, and sold 100 times over. When you inevitably sell your car or trade it in for a new model, how do you ensure you aren't permanently selling a piece of yourself along with it?
That is a deeply unsettling question to take with you the next time you get behind the wheel. Grip the steering sensor and turn the ignition. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As always, keep questioning the invisible systems around you. Force yourself to read the fine print even when it feels like a deliberate fog machine, and stay curious. Catch you next time.